FLIGHTBOSS, bitch. You know, for sure. You're now listening to the Mind of an Antares, man. I'm the Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucking responsibilities. And right now we're going to get into understanding the esoteric weather, because I'm getting ready to start this every day also, which I call it the Esoteric Weather Channel. And you know, this is going to be the actual new age weather channel that people need to understand, because you know the 3D is over. 3D age is over with. You know what I'm saying? So for the most part, understanding the 3D realm of reality weather, I mean, we kind of already understand that based upon its consistency. We understand the seasons. We kind of understand how to determine when it's going to rain and storm, and then the energy vortex of currents that create tornadoes and hurricanes and things of that nature. So you know, we kind of already got an understanding of the third dimensional aspect of weather. But, you know, since third dimension is outdated, you know what I'm saying, we need a higher realm of weather and a higher realm of understanding it. So, and for we could overstand our spiritual weather that we're going through at the moment. So it could be a sunny day, it could be a fucking heavy storming day, it could be a motherfucking catastrophic day, it could be a fucking cataclysm happening. You know, it's fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension. The weather there expands beyond what y'all are perceiving in the third dimension. And just for the simple fact that y'all receiving light rays and things of that nature, y'all are experiencing the physical effects of it from a low vibrational state. But in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, it's a little bit more lighter. So this is how we're going to break it down. Understanding how the energetic energies flows, you need to understand the elements. So understanding the elements, you'll kind of be able to perceive what type of energy is hitting you. You know what I'm saying? So if you're not truly understanding what fire represents, if you're not truly understanding what water represents, if you're not truly understanding what earth and air represents, then you're not going to be necessarily the one to be able to pinpoint what kind of energy you're receiving throughout the day. And since we're talking about transits and planets being in specific signs and elements, this lets you know that the better you understand elements and be able to mix elements together and become an alchemist, then you'll kind of be able to generalize what kind of energy everybody is getting hit with. Because it's not going to be always settled. You always got planets that's going to be in air, and then fire, and then water. So you have to learn how to mix and be an alchemist and know how to mix in a pot and cook like Lil B or something like that, or you know what I'm saying, or OJ the Juice Man. And you know, whip up in the motherfucking kitchen and get you a motherfucking bird that you could go motherfucking sell in the ASTRO realm, which that's a whole other video. But for the most part, we finna get into this concept of understanding the elements. Now, for the most part, this is how we're gonna break down the weather. You need to know this, right? Anytime there's a lot of planets and stars that's in water or fire, that creates heat, because you need water for a current, and you need and it causes filling, and fire causes filling, and you need the light or the fire for the actual transformation or the heat, or for something to move to start a current in the first place. And you need the water as the physical representation, and I don't even want to say physical, but as the bodily current representation of what got sparked from the fire. So the subtle, aka the subconscious version of the fire will be the water. So you know, this plays out generally in the yin realm. So fire would be the masculine version of the yin. Water would be the feminine version of the yin, because masculine give off that yin energy, the imagination, the internal things. Water receives it, soak it in, and generalize it, and you know what I'm saying, and try to condense it and put it out in the shape or form due to expression or emotions and feelings or communication, because it's H2O. It's actually air and water in this dimension. So water signs a lot of times like to communicate too. That's what y'all may fail to realize. And they may communicate a lot of their feelings and emotions, but will make a complete air sign sometimes want to shed that part off and just fly, aka don't like to be around people who are always in their emotional feelings. But so when we get into this aspect, you know what I'm saying, you got water being wet, earth being dry, you got fire being hot, and you got air being cold. So when we get into the understanding the esoteric weather, right, anytime we got a bunch of planets in water and fire, that's going to accumulate heat because it causes filling. You know what I'm saying? And anytime there's a lot of planets or stars in air and earth, that's when you know in the astral realm it's going to cause coldness. That'd be a cold day. You know what I'm saying? Because think about it in 3D terms. Anybody who's who like to think and be logical all the times, aka air, or like to be practical and make sense out of things, aka earth. When a person is too practical or too logical, they will be perceived as cold to others because they don't show no concernment for another person's emotional state of whatever they're going through, because they're constantly throwing out ideas, concepts, or trying to make sense out of things. So this may be the person to tell you get out of your feelings. You see what I'm saying? So air and earth, just in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, when there's a lot of planets and stars there, that creates the energy signature of coldness. So the temperature in the astral realm will be cold that day. Now if there's a lot of planets in water and fire, you know, any times that you put fire and imagination and passion to something, it could be felt. So when you look at the representations of water and fire, this is why these things can be felt. You know what I'm saying? And you can feel the movement of it, and then you can see the shape and form of it through the water, or you can imagine it and see it dance through the fire. So you see what I'm saying? Anytime there's a lot of planets and stars within water and fire, that's an extremely hot day. Now you know it's not always totally like that, so you got to understand how to be an alchemist. So there's going to be planets in earth, air, water, and fire at all moments. You know what I'm saying? And you know these are very precious days when there's genuinely one energy being pushed amongst the earth. And that means when there's a star in one specific element, like all the planets may be in fire, all the planets may be in water, or something like that. So you know what I'm saying? So when I start these esoteric weather channels and give y'all a degree, you know what I'm saying? Now you're gonna understand what I'm talking about when I say, oh, today is 70 degrees, or today is 60 degrees. You know what I'm saying? Because for the most part, look at it like this, right? I'm gonna calculate it based upon the 10 planets. You know what I'm saying? That's the 10 stars. That's the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So depending on where they're all at, that's how I'm going to decipher the actual weather that's going on in the esoteric realm. Because this is actually all true. This is not something I'm actually making up. You see what I'm saying? So for the most part, just look at it like this. Say you got 5 planets. Since we're calculating it based upon 10 stars, say you got 10 planets and 10 planets in fire and 10 planets in air. That mean, you know what I'm saying? That mean that day it'd be 50 degrees that day. I'm saying, because it's half is half. It's half cold, half, so you know what I'm saying, it could be humid. And when you got temperatures like that, it could cause tornadoes and hurricanes and things like that. And that could kind of let you know that when you got fire and air, or anytime sextiles and oppositions coming together is based upon the alignment and the transit, that creates opportunities. So the opportunities could be good or bad. Now, the opportunity could play out in a bad way, but the situation and the elements mixed in was set up, and the recipe was right for that to happen. You know what I'm saying? Based upon the sextile. Same way of something positive happen when there's a sextile. So based upon if you even have a sextile within your sun and your moon, you need to know you're the type of person who creates opportunities. Anytime you act on something and pay attention, you create an opportunity that manifests in your life that'll cause a reaction, or for you to react and respond to something. And it could be negative or positive, and vice versa. The things that make you feel comfortable in your state of being, and the things you like to react and respond to in this world that we in, every time you do that, it creates opportunities to be seen by others, or create opportunities to be acted upon or paid attention to in some way, shape, or form. So based upon your other placements, or the circumstance and the situations that you are around, and the people, places, and things, you need to adjust what kind of opportunities you're going to be creating for yourself. Because a lot of times you could be getting a helping hand where you don't need it. You could be having certain friends and certain family that just being around them and being absorbed in their energy and what's attached to them, by you already being a sextile, you're going to create opportunities that allow opportunities to portray with these people. Now, based upon you're getting used or you're using someone else, it can play out in a bunch of different ends. But if you know you are a sextile, you need to know you're the person that's creating an opportunity. So either you're an opportunist, or people look at you as an opportunity in some way, shape, or form. And based upon the way you react and respond to things, or based upon the things you act on and pay attention to, your sun and your moon, if they're sextiling each other. You see what I'm saying? So, astrological weather, we're going to get ready to get this down. We're going to get this down packing. I'm going to be doing this shit every day also, and I'm not going to stop doing everything else I was doing. I just like to add shit. You know what I'm saying? Because therefore, people don't understand you're going through different influences every day, because the closest star is the moon, and it's traveling the fastest, right? And because it moves a degree every 2 hours. So every 2 hours there's a swing, there's an emotional swing shift, there's a mood change. That's why they say the moon control the tides. What are the tides? The water. What is water in astrology? Emotions and feelings. So when you want to correlate your true state of being and your emotional state and your most lightest cloth, your macabre that you created to be aware of yourself here, the moon will be the closest scenario. You know what I'm saying? And the moon, and the space that the moon is in is kind of let you know where the space that you came from. You know what I'm saying? So whatever sign that your moon is in, that's the kind of the shit you was familiar with. It kind of plays like your motherly energy, right? And then you create a solar plexus to be aware of yourself and be conscious, and other people to be consciously aware of you. And that's when you create your sun, right? And then the space that your sun is in will be the ascendant, because the sun is always rising. So this is why you have a rising sign, but you can have it in a different house. But the sun could be in a different house. You see what I'm saying? Because the sun is always rising. So you're always going to have an ascendant sign. So the space and the location that the sun was in when you was born, that's the space that your sun like to be in. So your sun is your actions. The sign that your sun is your actions, the way you act and how you see things right now. The space it's in is how it sees it. You know what I'm saying? How it likes to look when it's doing it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how it's going to appear to be. For the most part, you know where the sun at when you look up, but the space is in is how it appears to be. When it's at this location that y'all want to quote unquote call 6 p.m. during the day, the sun is going to appear to look like that. When y'all see the sun setting, rising, with all these false terms that y'all correlate to kind of try to understand y'all third dimensional realm of reality in some way, shape, or form. When y'all looking at these suns, when y'all looking at the sun in different spaces and locations, y'all seeing it appear a different way. When it's noon, y'all seeing it appear high. You know what I'm saying? When it's rising, you seeing it appear at a rising state, just at the sea level. You know what I'm saying? In each different space and location, it has a different appearance. So that's your rising sign, how you appear to be. And a lot of times it correlates to your first impression. But really, at its core, is your personality, personal issues, and affairs. Because your sun is your actions, the way you act and how you see things. So that's your sun sign. But the spaces in, it's how you personally construct it, the personality throughout it. Like I use me for an example. Now I'm an Aries, right? So my actions and the way I act and how I see things is cardinal fire, initiating and creating new ways of how to see and feel about things. You see what I'm saying? But the space it was in the 5th house. But since the sun is always rising, the 5th house becomes my 1st house. So I have a Leo rising. You know what I'm saying? Because I was born at 2:44 p.m. So if you understand how humans came up with time, then you will understand flight astrology, and you will be able to understand how to correlate the houses without even actually having to use a house system or somewhat astrological system. You see what I'm saying? Now, by me being an Aries, right? That mean during the year I was born, when the sun rises at 6 a.m., which y'all want to call 6 a.m. in the morning, in astrological terms, that just means behind the sun is the Aries star constellation. You know what I'm saying? And if you want to talk about Vedic and Eastern, what they're saying is the stars that moved in that space and location right now will be the Pisces stars. But that space and location in general always has an energy signature in the same vortex. So even though stars travel, same way you are a star, you travel, you know what I'm saying, the space and location still remains the same. And that's when we talk about how we decipher our 360, how we decipher our wheel. And that's basically how we determine the houses or the moon mansions and however y'all want to separate the surroundings that we are in. So for the most part, when you correlate the space and location during the time that y'all want to quote unquote call spring, during this location or where I live at, based upon America, you know what I'm saying, when the sun is rising during that period of time, and let's say April, during that period of time the sun will be rising in the space and location that created the whole star constellation Aries, which would be the space and location what we call the 1st house, right? So in that instance right there, if I was born at 6 a.m. of the made up time that y'all made, I will be an Aries ascendant also. But since I was born at 2:44 p.m., right, that means the sun at the day I was born, that Aries day I was born, the sun itself on our smaller clock, our smaller wheel, based upon the horoscopic system, that's why you always have to utilize that. That's how they created time. The sun was in a different space. It was in the 5th house space. Because at 2:44 p.m., that would be the 5th house. So the sun was in the 5th house at the time I was born, because I was born at 2:44 p.m., April 6th. So the sun was in the 5th house. Now, since the sun is always rising, that's my rising sign. So your rising sign. So in my life, not the overall bigger clock, that's the 5th house. But since I'm on a smaller clock, the 5th house, the sun being in the 5th house where it appears to be, becomes my 1st house, because that's when I was born. So my actions, how Aries is going to look like Leo. So the way I carry out initiating and creating new ways of how to see and feel about things, I do it it looked like a Leo way personally. right? So it's a fixated fire way, being fixated on my own way of seeing and feeling about things. So I may have a certain expression. I may have a certain way of expressing myself and dealing with passion and intuition and having my own fixated way of seeing and feeling about things, which can become consistency or stubbornness. But that's how the Aries going to look. So that's the Aries personality I have. And what's motivating Aries is the moon, 8 degrees Sagittarius. So for the most part, that's mutable fire, being mutable and being able to adapt to my own or other people's ways of seeing and feeling about things. So that's what motivates my sun to actually create a new way of seeing and feeling about being mutable, seeing how other people feel about the broad things of life. And then my personality, I have a fixated and expressionable way of expressing that. You see what I'm saying? So you see how you decipher it down? The ascendant is just the space and location, which is like the spirit almost, because your space is your spirit. So it's the energetic vibe, the aura you give off. It's the aura you give off, your personality. You know what I'm saying? And how it looks, how it appears to be. You know what I'm saying? So your personality ascendant is how it appears to be, the space, the state of being, the space and location the sun was in. But once somebody start to get to know how you act and how you react to things, aka your sun and your moon is your reactions, your sun is how you act. Once people start to know how you act and react, they have to actually start to get into your life. They start to see your ego and how you act first, but once they start to get around your family and start to see the things that you manifest in your life, they start to see how you actually react to things in your true state of being. Then that's when they get personal and start to know you based upon your moon. But as far as how you appear to be 24/7, that's your ascendant, whether people know you or not. You still got your personality. So, understanding the astrological weather, that's how we're going to break this down. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, we're going to get right into that right now. Flight boss, bitch, goddamn air.